The wind moves wrong tonight. That is the first thing the servants of Moonvail Palace notice. Not the crimson tinge bleeding into the horizon. Not the way the wolves in the eastern kennels have gone silent for the first time in living memory. It is the wind. It moves against itself, curling back through corridors of ancient stone, as if searching for something it lost long ago. Candles lean eastward. Every single one. No one speaks of it. In Moonvail, you learn quickly. The things that cannot be explained are the things that will get you killed if you name them aloud. At the far end of the throne hall, behind doors of hammered silver 30 feet tall, King Kale Draven sits on his throne of black obsidian and wolf fur and waits. He has been waiting since the war ended. He has been waiting since Seline. He has been waiting so long that his court has mistaken his stillness for peace. It is not peace. A guard leans toward his captain at the eastern gate. "The wind," he murmurs. "It's coming from inside." The silver doors begin to open. The grand silver doors of Moonvail Palace have opened for conquerors, for kings, for the condemned. Tonight, they open for a girl no one bothered to learn the name of. She walks in the way that survivors walk, not with confidence, not with pride, but with the careful, measured step of someone who has learned to map every room before she needs to run from it. Her wrists are bound in ceremonial silver cord, the traditional binding of the claimed. She was supposed to arrive broken. They sent 3 guards to ensure it. All 3 have bruised knuckles. None of them will explain how. The court of Alterus has seen 100 Omegas walk this floor. Heads bowed, shoulders carved inward, souls already surrendered before the first word was spoken. They know the shape of submission. They know its smell. What they do not know is a girl who walks like she is counting the exits. She stops at the center of the obsidian floor, exactly where the moonlight from the high windows pools into a perfect circle of silver, as if the palace itself laid a stage for her without being asked. Her eyes move once, quickly, across the assembled court. Lords and ladies in furs and jewels and borrowed arrogance. Guards with spears held loosely, bored, certain this will be over in minutes. Then her eyes reach the throne. He is already watching her. Kale Draven does not look like the stories. The stories gave him fangs and fire, and the silhouette of a monster. The truth is quieter and more dangerous. He is simply a man who has never once been denied anything, sitting very still, with the particular attention of someone who has just noticed something unexpected. For 3 seconds, they look at each other. She does not look away. The court notices. A sound moves through the room. Not quite a gasp, not quite silence. The sound of 200 people simultaneously understanding that something is wrong with the script. High Priest Vorek steps forward in his white and gold robes, his voice smooth as oil on marble. "Omega, you will kneel and receive the king's mark. This is law. This is mercy. Refuse." He lets the pause land like a blade. And it is death. The candles gutter sideways, toward her. Her chin rises exactly 1 degree. No, the word is not loud. It does not need to be. It lands in the silence of the throne hall the way a stone lands in still water, not with a crash, but with a ripple that reaches every single wall. A lord in the 3rd row actually steps back. Someone drops a goblet. The sound of it rolling across obsidian is the only sound in the world for a long moment. On his throne, for the first time in a decade of wars won and men broken at his feet, King Kale Draven goes very still. Then, "What did she say?" Vorek moves instantly. "My king, she is clearly disoriented from the journey. The ritual binding sometimes causes confusion in the lower designations. I asked her." 2 words. The entire room reshuffles itself around them. Kale descends from the throne. He does not move like a man in a hurry. He moves the way a storm moves, with the absolute certainty that everything in its path will simply cease to resist. He stops 6 feet from her, close enough to execute her by law, close enough for her to smell iron and wood smoke and the cold, specific scent of someone who has not let their guard down in years. She does not step back. She does not look down. "You understand," he says quietly, what that word costs you. She looks at him the way she looked at the exits, with clarity, not courage. Courage trembles. This does not. I've already paid prices men like you set, she says. I've stopped being afraid of your receipts. He searches her face for fear. He searches the way a man searches who has never once not found it. He finds something else entirely. Something he has not seen in so long, he almost does not recognize it. Honesty, undisguised, unstrategic, exhausted honesty. At the edge of the room, behind his serene expression, High Priest Vorik watches. And very quietly, very carefully, he begins to smile. The trap, he thinks, is working perfectly. They give her 1 hour. This is traditional. The mercy hour, they call it. Time for the condemned to reconsider, to come to their senses, to remember that survival is worth the price of surrender. Vorik delivers this information with the gentleness of a man offering a gift. She spends the hour memorizing the room. The chamber they lock her in is small and high-windowed, the kind of room designed to feel like a kindness compared to a cell. There is a basin of water on the table. There is a single white candle. There is a door with 1 guard outside it, which means there is also a door somewhere that does not have a guard, because there always is. People who design prisons always leave themselves an exit. She finds it in 20 minutes. A servant's passage behind the east-facing tapestry, locked but not bolted. She files this information away and does not use it. Not yet. Running is a last resort. Information is the first. When Vorik returns, she walks back to the throne hall herself. The court has changed in her absence. Or rather, the court has arranged itself for a spectacle. Word has spread. This is no longer a claiming ritual. This is something else. Something the lords and ladies of Alterus have dressed up in their finest furs to witness. Their faces bright with the particular hunger of people who enjoy watching history be made. So long as they are not the ones making it. She is brought to the center floor again. Vorik produces a ceremonial dagger on a velvet cushion, silver-bladed, ancient, used in 300 years of claim rituals to draw the Alpha's mark on the Omega's skin. One final opportunity, Vorik says, to the room as much as to her. Kneel, receive the mark, be welcomed into the protection of the crown. She looks at the dagger. She looks at the king on his throne. She looks at Vorik, and then she does something no one in 300 years of palace record has ever done. She picks up the dagger herself. The room stops breathing. She turns the blade and draws it across her own palm in one clean, practiced motion. The same motion she uses to make fire, to cut cord, so to do the 100 small necessary violences of surviving in a burned world. No hesitation, no theater, just a woman making a choice. The blood falls to the obsidian floor, and then the world answers. It begins with the wind, that same wrong wind from before, but enormous now, filling the throne hall from nowhere, from everywhere, from the seams between the stones themselves. The candles do not gutter this time. They go out. Every single one, simultaneously, leaving the hall lit only by the pale light from the high windows, which is changing. Everyone looks up. The moon is running red. Not the red of sunset, not the red of cloud cover over a distant fire. The deep, arterial, specific red of old blood, spreading from the center outward as if something far above them is slowly bleeding out across the sky. The court erupts. Lords grabbing the arms of their neighbors. Guards looking to each other for instructions none of them have. Someone begins to pray in the old tongue, the words they stopped teaching their children 2 generations ago, because the old gods had not answered. In so long, they assumed the old gods were dead. The prophecy of the wind, Vorik says, and his voice carries perfectly over the chaos, resonant and prepared. The blooded Omega, she is real, she is here, by the goddess, she is here. He turns to the king with an expression of absolute, practiced wonder. On his throne, Kale is not looking at the moon. He is looking at her. She is looking at her bleeding hand. Her expression is not wonder. It is not fear. It is the very specific expression of someone who has just had a suspicion confirmed. The wind answered her before she cut herself. She felt it shift the moment her fingers closed around the blade's handle. It rose to meet the intention, not the act. She has felt this before, since she was a child. The wind listening, responding, following the current of her feeling like water follows the shape of its container. This was never a prophecy awakening something dormant inside her. Whatever she has always been. She tucks this knowledge into the place where she keeps the servant's passage, and the guard's patterns, and the high priest's two ready words. She adds it to the architecture of information she is building, stone by stone, because information is survival, and she intends to survive. Around her, the court chants a name she has never heard applied to herself. She closes her bleeding hand. She looks up at Vorak, and then at the king, and she keeps her face perfectly, completely, deliberately still. The east wing is where the palace keeps its beautiful problems. She learns this from the wind. It is her third night in the chamber they have given her, larger than the first, high-ceilinged, furnished in the heavy golds and deep crimsons of official hospitality that is not quite the same thing as freedom. The window looks east over the outer wall to the dark line of the Ashwood forest. The door has 2 guards now, which means she has been upgraded from condemned prisoner to significant asset, which means something has shifted in the politics of the palace that she does not yet understand. The wind explains it to her in pieces. This is not magic in the dramatic sense, or at least it does not feel dramatic to her. It feels like listening, like the particular attention you develop when survival depends on hearing what is being said in the room next door, except the room is the entire palace, and the wind carries sound in ways that walls cannot fully contain. A voice raised in an argument 2 corridors away. The specific weight of boots moving with purpose versus moving with routine. The way cold air moves differently through a door that is open versus a door that only appears to be closed. On the 3rd night, she hears Vorak. He is in the room beneath hers. What she has mapped as a records room, rarely used, which means it was chosen deliberately for a conversation that was not meant to be overheard. His voice comes up through the floor grate in fragments, stitched together by the wind into something almost whole. The timing must align with the rogue advance. A second voice. Male. Accented with the flat vowels of the northern clans. Your king expects the Omega to harmonize the prophecy, to legitimize. Kale expects what I have given him reason to expect, Vorak says, and there is something in his voice now that was not present in the throne hall. Not the warm oil of performed devotion, but something older and colder and entirely certain of itself. By the time he understands what the prophecy was actually designed to do, it will not matter. The storm is coming. Let it come. The second voice again, almost too quiet. And the girl? A pause. The girl is the lock, Vorak says. Not the key. She does not need to survive. She only needs to be present. She lies on her back in the dark and stares at the ceiling and breathes with great care and precision. She is not the prophecy's hero. She is its mechanism, a door that opens inward, designed to be walked through and left behind. She thinks about the servant's passage in the first room. She thinks about the window to the Ashwood. She thinks about running, which she promised herself would be a last resort, and considers whether this qualifies. Then she thinks about Vorak's voice. The certainty in it. The particular confidence of a man who has been building something for a long time without anyone noticing. She thinks about the king, alone on his throne, waiting for peace, waiting for something he does not know has already been decided for him. She does not like the king. She does not owe the king anything. The mathematics of what his war cost her village is not something she has yet been able to look at directly. But she understands, with the cold clarity that has kept her alive this long, that Vorak is not building a world without Kale. He is building a world without both of them. She closes her eyes. She does not run. Not yet. He comes on the 4th night, after the 2nd bell. She has not been sleeping. She rarely does, in new places. Her body refuses to commit to unconsciousness until it has memorized all the exits, and she is still cataloging Moonveil's considerable architecture of secrets. She is sitting on the window ledge with her knees drawn up, watching the ashwood, when the door opens without a knock. Only one person in this palace opens doors without knocking. She does not look away from the window. "You're not sleeping," he says. "Neither are you." He crosses the room and stands at a distance that is not quite comfortable and not quite hostile. The distance of a man who is used to the room arranging itself around him and has not yet determined what arrangement this room requires. She can see him in the glass reflection of the window. He is not in armor. He is dressed simply in dark wool and without the throne and the ceremony and the assembled fear of 200 courtiers. He looks like something the stories left out. Tired. "The court is calling you blessed," he says. "Vorek has given 3 sermons." "I know. You don't seem pleased." "I'm not interested in being blessed," she says. "I'm interested in being alive." He is quiet for a moment. She waits. So she has learned that silence is the most efficient question. People fill it with whatever they have been carrying. "Seline," he says finally. She turns from the window. He is not looking at her. He is looking at the space to the left of her, at something that has not been in this room for years, that perhaps never was, that lives only in the specific geography of loss. "She was an Omega," he says, "from the Hill clans, before the consolidation. She refused her clan Alpha's mark, ran, was taken by a rival lord who wanted to use her against her clan." A pause. "She died rather than be claimed by him, chose it, deliberately." The silence after this has weight. "You became heartless," she says carefully, "because she was brave." "I became—" He stops, starts again. "I thought I could prevent it. All of it. How if I controlled enough? If there were no rival lords with the power to take what they chose? If the borders were held?" "You thought if you held everything tightly enough," she says, "nothing else could die in your hands." He looks at her then, with the expression of a man who has just been accurately diagnosed. She looks back at him with the expression of a woman who is doing the specific mathematics of what she knows and what he doesn't know she knows. He ordered the campaign. She knows this. She was 14 years old when the soldiers came to her village, with his colors on their shields and the orders of the crown in their pockets. She knows the name of the general who commanded it. She knows the morning it happened, because she has had 11 years of mourning since then to remember it against her will. He does not know she was there. The village had no name on any official map. The Omegas taken were not recorded. She does not tell him. Not because she has forgiven him, she is not. Not because she has decided he deserves protection, she is still deciding. But because information is survival, and she is not yet sure what this information is worth, and she needs to understand what kind of man stands in front of her before she decides what to do with the knife she is holding, where he cannot see it. "Why did you come here?" she asks. He seems genuinely uncertain. "I don't know," he says, and it sounds like the most honest thing he has said in years. He leaves before the 3rd bell. At the door, he pauses. "The wind," he says, without turning. "Does it speak to you, or do you speak to it?" She considers this. "I think," she says slowly, "we have the same things to say." He leaves. She turns back to the window and watches the ashwood for a long time, and the wind wraps around her shoulders like something that has been waiting to come home. The herbs arrive on a plain wooden tray with no note. This is deliberate. She recognizes the deliberateness immediately. The plainness is too plain, the anonymity too arranged, the way the tray has been placed by the door rather than left with a servant suggesting that whoever carried it last wanted their hands on it as briefly as possible. She examines the herbs. Cold moss for inflammation, ash bloom for fever, and one small bundle, tied separately in undyed cotton, of stone leaf, which grows only in the restricted thermal valleys of the king's private eastern preserve. and is dispensed exclusively through the palace physician's locked stores. Stoneleaf, here, anonymous. She presses a sprig between 2 pages of the palace record she has been reading, not because she needs the evidence, but because she has been building something and she is not yet certain of its final shape, and builders keep their materials even before they know what they are building toward. She makes tea from the cold moss and the ash bloom, and does not make tea from the stoneleaf, because stoneleaf is not for tea. It is for poultices, which means whoever sent this knows she has been sleeping on her knees to keep her feet elevated after the walk in the ceremonial chains, which means she was observed more carefully than she realized. The idea of Kale Draven noticing her bruised feet and sending herbs in response is something she is not entirely sure what to do with. She is used to men who notice weakness and use it. She does not have a ready category for a man who notices weakness and quietly tries to address it. She adds this to the architecture, next to the stone leaf. She does not mean to look. The basin is for washing, not for seeing. She knows this, has always known this, the way you know that a window is for light and not for falling, and yet sometimes you stand at them too long and feel the pull regardless. The wind has been strange all day, circular and close, not carrying information, but building pressure the way the air builds before a storm, and when she looks down at the basin, her own reflection is wrong. Not wrong in the way of distortion. Wrong in the way of replacement. She sees Kale. He is in the outer courtyard. She recognizes the eastern arch, and he is losing. Not a battle, something more specific. He is on one knee in the snow, and the figure standing over him is wearing white and gold, and the rings of the high priest catch the light as the hand raises. Vorek, in the vision, in the courtyard, in the snow. Vorek with a blade the same color as his ceremonial dagger. She watches the vision until it fades, and then she sits back on her heels and stares at the ordinary water, and thinks very carefully. The man in that vision ordered the destruction of her home. The man in that vision runs a kingdom on fear and hierarchy, and the systematic reduction of everyone designated lower than himself. The man in that vision came to her room at midnight and said, "I don't know," when she asked him why, and it was the most human sound she had heard in 11 years. The man in that vision is going to die in the snow with Vorek's knife in him while she sits in the east wing with her archive of dried herbs and careful notes, and a wind that loves her and not him. She sits with this for a long time. Then she picks up a piece of parchment, picks up the quill, sets the quill down, picks it up again. The wind in the room circles and waits. She begins to write. The bells ring at the 3rd hour past midnight. Not the measured toll of timekeeping, the sharp, repeating, close-together rings that mean the outer wall has been breached. The sound she has heard before, above different walls, in a village with no name on any official map. And every muscle in her body knows this sound before her mind catches up with it. She is at the door before she is fully awake. The guards are gone. This is not a good sign. This means the attack was anticipated by someone who needed her door unguarded at a specific moment, which means this is not simply a rogue clan raid, which means the vision in the water was not a distant possibility, but a tonight. She is out of the room and into the servants' passage before she finishes the thought. She does not go toward the ashwood. She goes toward the courtyard. This is the decision that she will, later, struggle to fully explain. Not because she does not understand it, but because the explanation requires admitting something she has not yet admitted aloud. She is not going to save him. She is not built for rescue. See, she is going because Vorek designed this ending, and she will not be any more of his architecture than she has already accidentally been, and because a woman who survived by refusing to be a mechanism will not start being one tonight. She tells herself this as she runs. She almost believes it. The palace corridors are chaos. Servants pressing against walls, soldiers running in conflicting directions. The particular noise of an institution discovering its own vulnerability. She moves through it the way water moves through a cracked structure, finding the paths between the solid things. She reaches the eastern arch. The courtyard is empty. The snow is undisturbed. She is too early. or she misread the vision, or the gate behind her opens. Kale comes through it backward, sword drawn, holding a fighting retreat against 3 soldiers wearing the Northern clan colors. He does not see her. He is entirely focused on staying alive, which he is managing, barely, by the specific combination of technical skill and controlled fury that she has heard described by soldiers as watching a man fight like he has nothing left to lose. Beyond the 3 soldiers, at the arch of the eastern gate, in white and gold, with a ceremonial dagger and the expression of a man watching something he arranged unfold on schedule, Vorek. He sees her at the same moment she sees him. His expression changes. For the first time, High Priest Vorek looks uncertain. She steps into the center of the courtyard. The wind comes with her, not gently this time, not in the quiet, intimate way of the East Wing, but fully, completely, seized with the accumulated pressure of 7 days of restraint releasing in one direction. It moves like weather, like the specific weather that has a name and a history and a speed of arrival that cannot be stopped, only sheltered from. Snow rises from the ground. The soldiers stumble. Torches extinguish along the wall above. Kale turns and sees her standing in the center of a contained storm, with her eyes open and her hands open and the wind moving from her, like she is the beginning of it. "I told you," she says to no one in particular, and everyone present. "I was not interested in being blessed." Vorek runs. She lets him go. She has his voice below her floor, recorded in the archive of her memory. She has the stone leaf in a palace record and a dried sprig as evidence and 3 weeks of catalogued patterns. She has enough. The soldiers break. The courtyard is quiet except for the wind, which is slowing now, gentling, returning to itself. Kale stands 10 feet from her in the snow. He is bleeding from his left arm. He is looking at her with an expression she has no category for, because no one has ever looked at her quite like this. Not with awe, not with fear, but with the very specific expression of a man who has just been saved by someone who had no obligation to save him, and he knows it. She does not look at him. She looks at where Vorek was standing. "The prophecy," she says quietly, "was his. Not mine, not yours. His." A silence. "I know," Kale says. She turns. He meets her eyes with the particular directness of someone stepping out from behind something they have been standing behind for a long time. "Sana, I've known since the second day. Vorek forged the ancient text 17 years ago. I found the discrepancy in the archive." He pauses. "I told myself I was using the prophecy as legal cover to keep you alive. I told myself it was strategy." "Was it?" Another pause. "Longer." "No," he says. The siege comes with the dawn. They come down from the ashwood with siege ladders and fire arrows and the specific organized violence of people who have been planning this for longer than anyone inside the walls realized, which is to say, people who had help from inside the walls. 3 outer gates fall in the first hour. The civilian quarter is targeted deliberately to split the palace guard between defense and evacuation. Kale fights in the front line. This is not strategy. It is the other thing. The thing his court has always been afraid of and always relied on. The part of him that has never been able to send other people to do what he can do himself. The part that Seline would have called his only good quality on a generous day. He fights well. He fights losing. The lines push back to the second wall by mid-morning. Liria finds a vantage point above the courtyard and watches the shape of the battle the way she watched the shape of the palace. Mapping, calculating, looking for the load-bearing structure. She is not a soldier. She has never been trained in formation or strategy. She is a girl who survived a burning by being very good at understanding how things collapse and where to be when they do. She sees it in the second hour. The northern flank is not pressing. They have the numbers to press. They are holding, deliberately, at the third gate, keeping the palace guard's attention fixed forward, while a smaller force works a weakness in the southeast wall that appears in the shadow of the tower, invisible from the main battlements, but visible from here. She is already moving. She does not think about what she is doing in terms of courage, because courage is a concept she has always found slightly dishonest. It implies you had the option of not acting, which implies you had something more valuable than the thing you were acting for. She has run the mathematics. Vorek's world does not have a version of her in it. This is therefore not bravery. It is arithmetic. The wind builds around her as she goes. Below, in the crush of the third gate, a dying soldier grabs Kale's arm between exchanges. She can hear the man's voice from 50 feet up, so because the wind carries it. My king, the Eastern Omega, village of Veth, your sealed orders from the... She does not look down. She focuses on the southeast wall. Behind her, she hears Kale go still in the middle of a battle. She reaches the tower base. The wind tears through the southeast gap with force that sends 2 northern soldiers sideways off the wall entirely. She stands in the opening, and the storm comes fully, now. Real storm. Not her gift, but the actual weather that has been building over Alterus for 3 days, as if waiting for someone to open the door and invite it in. The northern advance on the southeast breaks, then the northwest, then the main flank, which has been fighting a disorganized retreat, and suddenly has both its flanks cleared and its enemy's advance rolled back by weather that moves with unmistakable direction and intention. The battle ends the way certain things end, not in a climax, but in a recognition, a slow understanding spreading from soldier to soldier that the shape of this has changed and the new shape is not navigable. Moonvail holds. She stands in the southeast gap with the wind settling around her, and the storm moving east toward the Ashwood, taking its work with it, and she allows herself exactly 3 seconds of something that is not quite triumph, but is in the same family. Then she goes to find Vorek. She walks past Kale on her way. He is standing very still. He does not speak. She does not look at him, because she is not ready for what his face will have on it, and she needs to finish one thing before she starts another. But she feels him watching her, and she feels, in the specific way that the wind feels the shape of what it moves through, that what is on his face is not the thing she has been braced for. It is not guilt, disguising itself as gratitude. It is just grief. Clear and simple, the undisguised kind, the kind a man wears when he has finally stopped hiding it. She keeps walking. She finds Vorek in the records room. He did not run far. Men like Vorek do not run. They recalculate. She can see it in the way he turns when she enters, already composing a new architecture around the fact of her presence, already building the next version of the story in which he survives. The blooded Omega, he says. You should be pleased. The palace stands. The prophecy is yours, she says. She puts the palace record on the table between them. She opens it to the page with the stone leaf pressed flat inside. Forged texts, 17 years. She looks at him. You built a trap for a king using a girl as the hinge. You told a northern commander that I only needed to be present, not alive. He does not deny it. She notes this. He is smart enough to know that denial requires knowing what she can prove, and he cannot yet assess that. Come to the throne hall, she says. And if I don't? She tilts her head very slightly. The wind in the room, the small indoor wind that has followed her since she was a child, lifts the pages of every document in the room simultaneously. He comes to the throne hall. The court assembles in pieces, drawn by rumors, and the particular gravity of something unresolved, the way a wound draws attention before it is dressed. Lords and guards and servants, and the wounded from the battle's aftermath, crowding the doorways with the expressions of people who understand that the story they thought they were in has been replaced by a different one. Kale is on his throne. He has not changed from battle, still armored, still bleeding from the arm wound, still wearing the specific exhaustion of a man who has been awake since before the thing that broke him was broken. She walks to the center of the obsidian floor. The moonlight falls in a circle around her. Again. Always this. She presents the evidence with the care and precision of someone who has been building a case for 3 weeks. Saw the forged texts, the northern commander, The voice through the floor grate. The timing of the attack against the unguarded door. She speaks for less time than it should take to dismantle 17 years of careful construction, and yet it is sufficient, because the evidence is sufficient, because she made sure of that before she walked into this room. The court is silent. Vorek stands to her left, and his composure is finally completely gone, not in a dramatic way, but in the slow, specific way of a structure that has lost its load-bearing wall, settling into itself, floor by floor. She turns to the king last. The prophecy was his weapon. I was his mechanism. She holds his gaze. I was not chosen. I have never been chosen. I am an Omega from a village with no name on any official map who refused to kneel. And the wind responded, because the wind has always responded to me, since before I understood what it meant, because it is simply what I am. A pause. You knew the prophecy was false. You used it to keep me alive. He does not look away from her. Yes, he says. You also ordered the campaign that burned my village, 11 years ago. The sealed orders are in the Eastern Archive under the Veth campaign record. I read them on the 14th day. The court makes a sound. He goes very still. Then, with the careful deliberateness of a man doing the most difficult thing he has ever done, which is to stop defending himself against the truth. Yes, he says again. She looks at him for a long moment. She looks at the man who built walls from grief and called it governance. Sai, the man who sent herbs on an anonymous tray, and came to her room at midnight and said, I don't know, when she asked why. The man who went still in the middle of a battle when he finally heard her name attached to a burning. The man who is sitting on his throne without hiding, which is the bravest thing she has seen in Moonvail, and she has seen a battle won by a wind. I am not your redemption, she says. I am not your prophecy. I am not the reason the goddess is watching this kingdom, or the answer to any question that was asked before I arrived. She lets this settle. But I am still here. That is my choice. Not destiny, not divinity, mine. What follows is not a fairy tale ending. There is a trial. Vorex is long and procedurally exhausting, and results in exile rather than execution, because she argues for exile, not out of mercy, but out of the conviction that a martyred priest is more dangerous than a living disgraced one. Kale listens to her argument. He rules in accordance with it. This is the first of many arguments she wins, and the first of many times he will listen. There is the matter of the Veth campaign. This is addressed publicly, in the court records, without euphemism. The village is named. The orders reproduced. The accounting done in daylight. This is her condition, and it is not negotiable, and he does not negotiate it. There is a long winter, and a spring, and another winter, and the slow, difficult process of two damaged people learning the difference between being useful to each other and being good to each other. She does not move into the palace's ceremonial quarters. She keeps the East Wing chamber. She keeps the servants' passage mapped. She keeps the exits memorized in every room she enters, because some things that kept you alive do not need to be discarded. They can simply be carried more lightly. He visits. She visits. Some nights he does not come, and she understands this as the shape of a man learning that he does not need to explain himself to earn company. Some nights she is not there when he arrives, and he understands this as the shape of a woman who spent 11 years making herself small and has no interest in making herself small again. It is not perfect. It is better than that. So on the first day of what the kingdom will eventually call the era of wind and peace, she stands at the high window of the East Wing and watches the ashwood in the early morning light. On the table behind her, dried stone leaf between palace record pages. A quill, ink-stained from use. The record of Vaith. Unsealed, open, named. The candle on the table is lit. The wind in the room stills. For the first time in 11 years of keeping herself company in dark rooms, waiting for something better than what she had been given, for the first time she can remember, it is quiet. Not the quiet of holding your breath, not the quiet of waiting for the next blow. the quiet of something that has finally, completely arrived. She opens the window. The morning air comes in. She lets it. The end. The kingdom breathes. The Omega is not blessed. She is free. The king is not redeemed. He is trying. The wind, for once, has nowhere it needs to be. Next episode. The blood-bound Omega, the Winter Court. The era of peace is 3 months old. Someone has started leaving Seline's name in the palace records, where it was previously erased, and Liria is beginning to wonder if the dead have something left to say.